So two senior Iranian clerics have issued declarations calling for the killing of U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So, yeah, negotiations are a little rocky right now, to say the least. Now, diving into this, the first one came out a couple days ago from Ayatollah Nasser Shirazi, a senior Iranian Shiite religious leader. He said, quote, "Any person or regime that threatens or attacks the leadership and authority in order to harm the Islamic Ummah and its sovereignty is considered a crime of mahareb, which is a term in Islamic jurisprudence that means waging war against God." He says it is necessary for all Muslims around the world to make these enemies regret their words and mistakes. He added that all Muslims must work to make the transgressors, so in this case Trump and Netanyahu, regret their actions even if they have to suffer for doing so, and that the reward will be the same as for fallen jihadis. Now, under Shiite jurisprudence, the declaration of mahareb and the issuance of a fatwa make it a religious obligation for devout Shiite Muslims to act. And turning over to memory, they said in Shiite Islam, and particularly under Iranian religious law, the punishment for this crime, mahareb, is particularly severe and is usually death. Less often, it could be exile, amputation of the transgressor's right arm and left leg, or crucifixion. So there you go. Didn't see that on the menu in 2025. The best way to look at this overall is it's not a direct threat from the Iranian government per se, more of a religious duty to devout Shiite Muslims that are looking to some of these religious leaders inside of Iran. It wasn't just one, however. The very next day, on June 30th, Grand Ayatollah Hussein Hamadani published a similar fatwa. He added, however, that protecting Khamenei was a religious obligation for all Muslims, and that any assistance to those harming him is also considered punishable by death according to their religion. Now, for what it's worth, this has been brought up to, we've seen the reporting on this in the United States and in Israel. I've not seen any official government statements from either. They're kind of just viewing this as, okay, yep, great. Now, the big challenge here, whether or not this actually, of course, big issue would be if anybody actually tries to follow through on this and tries to attack, kill one of the leaders of the United States or Israel. That's the number one concern. Second to that, maybe a ways down the totem pole, is the concern that this might overhang some of the negotiations. I mean, remember, the issue of the Iranian nuclear program, the ballistic missile threat, and their support of regional proxies is not over. And they still have a fair amount of highly enriched uranium that is somewhere around the country that we don't appear to know where it is, and neither does the IAEA. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth on the battle damage assessments around Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan, and others. We're going to get to that in a second because we do have some new satellite imagery to run through. But first, I wanted to play some segments from an interview with the IAEA director, Rafael Grossi, on CBS Face the Nation just yesterday, where he talks about how when looking at the overall damage to these locations, he can confirm that there was probably severe damage, but not total. Here, let's give it a listen.
People here are looking for clarity, and there's confusion in the United States. CBS is reporting that the Defense Intelligence Agency assesses Iran's program was set back a few months, but once they dig out, they could resume in a number of months. They have to rebuild electrical and water supplies. The CIA and the National Intelligence Directors say the facilities were destroyed, and it would take years to rebuild. Israel says the military program is set back many years. What's the truth here? What do you make of these assessments?
All of that depends on your metrics, Margaret. If you tell me it will take them 2 months or 3 months, for what?
Right.
The capacities they have are there. They can have, in a matter of months, I would say, a few cascades of centrifuges spinning and producing enriched uranium, or less than that. But as I said, frankly speaking, one cannot claim that everything has disappeared and there is nothing there. It is clear that there has been severe damage, but it's not total damage, first of all. And secondly, Iran has the capacities there, industrial and technological capacities. So if they so wish, they will be able to start doing this again.
Now, there's been a lot of partisan bickering on this. Unfortunately, it's turned into a partisan political topic here in the United States where Trump supporters are saying everything is gone, and more on that in a minute. And then anybody that for any reason wants to either push back against President Trump or maybe wants to push for more U.S. military intervention in Iran is saying, no. There's still plenty standing, and we've got some evidence from that camp as well. Personally, it does feel like the IAEA Director Grossi has done a pretty good job of kind of walking that line and really stick to the facts. Again, personal opinion there, but I do like how he's come down on a lot of this, sticking to what we know and not really speculating on what we don't. And to that end, he does stress in the second clip here that there's still a lot of work yet to be done. This is not over, not by a long shot.
If we don't know where the highly enriched uranium is and cannot account for all the centrifuges, is there still a risk that they could be rushing towards a bomb?
We don't want to be alarmists here, and I don't want to be part of a messaging that would be spreading, as I say, alarm. But we need to be in a position to ascertain, to confirm what is there and where is it and what happened. Iran had a very vast, ambitious program, and part of it may still be there. And if not, there is also the self-evident truth that the knowledge is there.
Yeah.
The industrial capacity is there. Iran is a very sophisticated country in terms of nuclear technology, as is obvious. So you cannot disinvent this. You cannot undo the knowledge that you have or the capacities that you have. It's a huge country, isn't it? So I think this should be the incentive that we all must have to understand that military operations or not, you are not going to solve this in a definitive way militarily.
So again, I'm not trying to suggest that Grossi is like more or less honest than anyone else weighing in on this matter, but he seems very, very measured compared to some others. And in fact, turning to one of those angles, the Washington Post just a couple days ago released this breaking news saying that the United States obtained intercepted communications between senior Iranian officials discussing this month's military strikes on Iran's nuclear program and remarking that the attack was less devastating than they had expected, which, okay. I mean, that kind of lines up with the DIA assessment. Remember the one that CNN, New York Times, Reuters, BBC, a bunch of different organizations ran with. They say the communication, intended to be private, included Iranian government officials speculating as to why the strikes directed by Trump were not as destructive and extensive as they anticipated. The Trump administration did not dispute the existence of the intercepted communications, which have not been previously reported, but disagreed with the Iranians' conclusions and cast doubt on their ability to assess the damage at 3 nuclear facilities. Here's the thing. In a video just a couple days ago, and we talked about this here, Axios reported through Barak Ravid that the Iranians were actually sending up false reports and in some cases had no idea the extent of their damage. So in Axios, that specific report said, quote, an Israeli official with direct knowledge of intelligence on Iran told Axios that intercepted communications suggest Iranian military officials had been giving false situation reports to the country's political leadership, downplaying the extent of the damage. Which raises the question, does that mean that is the Washington Post reporting on these intercepted calls that Israel says they're intentionally downplaying it? Or is it an actual intercepted call unrelated to the other ones that Israel, you see what I'm getting at? A little confusing, hard to dial in if they're talking about the same subject or not. So I would view that Washington Post story, the intercepted communications, with a lot of skepticism right now because we kind of got warning about, the downplaying of the repercussions just a couple days before that came out. Now, if we want to look at things for our own eyes, we do have some new satellite imagery here provided by David Albright, the president and founder for the Institute for Science and International Security. He noted some digging at the Fordow nuclear facility just a couple days ago, and I'm going to run through his assessment. He says Maxar imagery taken on June 28th shows that the Iranians are actively working at the 2 MOP, Massive Ordnance Penetrator, impact sites, penetrating the ventilation shafts of the Fordow enrichment plant with heavy earth-moving equipment, including 1 excavator at each location. The purpose of this activity may include backfilling the craters as well as conducting engineering damage assessments and likely radiological sampling. The craters above the main shafts remain open. 2 of the 6 MOP impact points appear to have been covered by square slabs. In other areas, we have observed that the Iranians have also rapidly repaired the bomb cratering damage on the main entrance road from only a few days prior. However, there are yet no indications of any efforts to reopen any of the tunnel entrances. There is a crane near one of the new access roads to the area of the MOP impact points that could be used in recovery. Could this be a crane to be used to get something in or out of the facility via the shafts? We note that the visual evidence is a long stretch from suggesting repair of the enrichment site. So that was imagery taken on the 28th, and David followed up here the very next day with imagery taken on June 30th. Again, looking at Isfahan here, or I'm sorry, previous one looking at Fordow, now we're looking at Isfahan. He says, Maxar satellite imagery of Isfahan nuclear complex shows little sign of activity, including any construction or other movement. Iran does not appear to have yet commenced recovery operations. So that's 2 sites. It does not look like they've begun recovery operations, let alone begun to repair any of the destroyed or damaged facilities at the main site, including such significant facilities as those used in the conversion of natural uranium to uranium hexafluoride and the conversion to enriched uranium metal. There is also no apparent recovery work happening at the underground site suspected by many to hold enriched uranium. All of the tunnel entrances at the underground site are still backfilled with dirt. The June 30th image shows more clearly that a probable ventilation duct was destroyed coming out of the southernmost tunnel entrance. It is all blackened along with the destroyed framework. There's a single truck parked outside on one of the northern portal entrances, possibly there to survey the site. Imagery on June 29th showed passenger vehicles at this northern portal. So between those 2 different sites there, it looks like nothing significant happening in terms of Iran trying to get down into these facilities. I don't know what you want to read into that. I feel like that's probably enough to read in both directions. My gut says that means that Iran probably doesn't have a clear picture of what the damage is below ground. If it doesn't look like anybody's going below ground, I don't think anybody's come out at this point. It's probably still a lot of estimations in a bunch of different directions. And for what it's worth, I've seen some military officials recently suggest, hey, this kind of thing takes months to get like an accurate battle damage assessment of what actually happened down there. Now, one of my concerns that I've raised in recent videos is this idea that we're starting to celebrate, that mission accomplished, all objectives are achieved, and I don't think that's the case, but that exact terminology is starting to be used more and more. I mean, I'll play this clip here from Newsmax or Greta Van Susteren, and I think it's worth noting the terminology she uses to frame to her audience, but then also Steve Witkoff's response and how he frames it. Keep in mind, as you watch this, Iran still has a significant ballistic missile program. They still have enriched uranium hidden somewhere, likely, have said that they are going to continue enriching uranium, have publicly said that they still have the knowledge and the know-how and the technical expertise to do that. It's hard to look at all of that and say mission accomplished, but a concern of mine is we're starting to present that to the media in a couple different ways. Let's start with this first interview from Newsmax. Here we go.
I was going to say, is there any point to the talks now? I mean, of course, we don't have a full damage assessment, and I hear everyone sort of fuss around on all the words and everything, but making the assumption that their program has been devastated or certainly damaged, is there any purpose for the talks? Because, the United States is, I believe, has achieved what it's want, that they don't have the capability. It's now just whether if Iran sort of wants to join the rest of the world and have sanctions lifted and be basically more engaged.
So I'm going to chime in there before Witkoff responds. You hear Greta's framing of that there, like, is there even a purpose in having talks right now? And that's actually something President Trump hits on here in a minute. But that topic, like, yes, we need to have some sort of talks. There's still a lot of issues here that are yet resolved. But nonetheless, let's over to Steve. Let's give a listen to Steve Witkoff here.
Well, that's the point. Look, we achieved our objectives. So did the Israelis. That's why the president was able to announce a ceasefire deal and get the parties to agree to the ceasefire.
So that's the framing we're starting to see more and more. We achieved our objectives. Mission complete. All done. We can come back home. Don't worry about it. This has been taken care of. And I think anybody watching this channel or keeping up to date with this issue knows that it's not done. Even the best case scenario here, there's still a lot of issues yet to be resolved, hopefully diplomatically, but very much still persist. But that's also the message being put forward by President Trump right now, who just yesterday in a truth post said, quote, "Tell phony Democrat Senator Chris Coons that I'm not offering Iran anything, unlike Obama, who paid them billions under the stupid Road to Nuclear Weapon JCPOA, which would now be expired." there were some rumors that Trump was heading up like a $30 billion reinvestment plan in Iran. So that's what he's talking about. He says, nor am I even talking to them since we totally obliterated their nuclear facilities. So not only is Senator Coons wrong and that assessment wrong, we're not talking to Iran at all. Which, again, when you step back and look at all of this and try to understand where are these negotiations headed or what's the next stage, it does not appear like these are happening anytime soon. There's not even a conversation. When you look at all the Sunday shows and all of the U.S. government representatives going on to talk about these different issues, we're so laser focused on the battle damage assessment. And was it obliterated or not? And fortunately now people are starting to ask, what about the uranium that we don't know where it is? Is that an issue? It is an issue. What's getting glossed over is, what about talks? Are we going to go back to that at some point? Because in terms of this ceasefire, that's all it is a temporary pause. We essentially looked at Iran and looked at Israel and said, time out, stop. Now, it looks like that's holding, except in the last 24 hours, there's randomly been a handful of explosions in Tehran that are not being answered. I mean, on Iranian media, they have occasionally announced that air defense is active over certain portions of the country, which kind of raises some alarm bells. Then all of a sudden, there's reports of ambulances rushing to certain scenes, and we're seeing smoke plumes in the distance. What is that? I don't know. Israel's not saying anything. They're not even acknowledging that happened. Iran, for their part, is staying incredibly quiet. Those look like an explosion, right? A couple times over. It looks like things are being hit. So it does not feel over. But sticking with the negotiations piece here, the Iranian deputy foreign minister just a couple days ago was asked about this, saying, hey, sounds like the United States wants to have these negotiations, wants to continue talking. I don't know where they're getting that from, because that's not the message that I'm seeing in the media. But they said, quote, no arrangements have been made, and what they're saying is not correct. And if we want to go directly to the source here, the Iranian foreign minister did an interview just the other day talking about this on, CBS. When they asked, like, are you ready? Is now the time? Are we going to start seeing negotiations? And here's what he had to say.
President Trump has said that talks with your government could restart as early as this week. Will that happen?
I don't think negotiations will restart as quickly as that. In order for us to decide to re-engage, we will have to first ensure that America will not revert back to targeting us in a military attack during the negotiations. And I think with all these considerations, we still need more time.
That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. I mean, I would say, yes, the United States and Israel definitely have more leverage right now over Iran. Israel has repeatedly said they're going to maintain air superiority, and the fact that random things are blowing up in Tehran makes it seem like maybe they are there now. I don't know. So you would think there would be some additional leverage we could apply to Iran, but from their perspective, what they're saying also makes sense. Why would we get back into the negotiations? We need some sort of way to guarantee that the United States is not going to begin military action or let Israel begin military action as soon as we go back to the negotiating table. So my gut right now, unless there's something major happening behind the scenes and all parties are somehow finding a way to not leak it and completely keep it under wraps, my gut right now says we're probably going to see a return to military action, military strikes sometime, I'll say in the next month. Maybe that's too long of a window here, but there's just too many things that are unresolved. Iran does not seem all that interested in coming back to negotiate. The U.S. isn't talking about it at all. And a lot of the issues that Israel went into Iran for in the first place still remain. They are still funding proxies across the region. They are still developing their ballistic missile program. And they have publicly said they are going to continue their enrichment of nuclear material. Oh, and add to that list the fatwa, of course, right? The declaration to kill Netanyahu and Trump. Seems like an important one to remember. But nonetheless, that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.